Welcome to Discuss With Us podcast, where we are unpacking the world through a Christian lens. I am your host, Darcy Durkowski, along with my husband, Brian, and our intention is to pose topics, trending and otherwise, and unpack them with the help of some research, insights from our different backgrounds, and even some listener input in a way that is thought-provoking and entertaining. So get comfortable, grab your favorite beverage, and discuss with us.
Welcome back to another episode of Discuss with Us. My name is Brian, along with my wife Darcy across the way.
Hello there.
How are you doing today, Darce?
Doing well after a nice spring break trip.
Yes, have you recovered yet?
I think so.
Yeah. We've been back for 3 days now.
We came back a day earlier than planned because of weather that was rolling in there, but that actually kind of worked out.
Yeah, that's a funny story that we'll get into with this. But we just had our spring break down here, decided to take the kids to Arkansas.
We went to Daisy State Park in Kirby, Arkansas.
Yeah, huge town. Y'all should know about Kirby. No, it's like population 181. But it was really fun. It was my first time to go to Arkansas. Never been there. So now I have a check on a new state on my 50 state map. So
You crossed the Red River.
yes, yeah, that was fun. Cross the Red River into some dry counties and Church of Christ's on every corner.
Yes. Yeah, that's really big there in that area.
Yeah, but no, it was my first time in Arkansas. We'll get into this in a little bit. We're going to talk about camping today and just kind of vacations in general. But all in all, my first time to Arkansas, I enjoyed it. It's really beautiful. I was talking with some people after I played music last night, and we were all agreeing, anyone that had been there, like Arkansas is probably the most underrated state that I've been to thus far, which isn't
travel-wise.
that many, but other people were agreeing with me, so it must be true.
Yeah. I've been there a couple of times in a similar area, and
Well, you have family there.
yes, exactly. But the landscape is really pretty. They have a variety of trees that we don't get all of those here in
Yeah,
that way. And so, yeah, it was really pretty. So Daisy
just a
State
lot of
Park,
flies,
yeah, there were some
but no
flies.
mosquitoes on our trip, so
Yeah.
that was a positive.
Yeah, I'll take flies over mosquitoes any day.
Maybe.
But Daisy State Park is on Lake Greeson, which
Yes.
I didn't even realize going into this that it was Lake Greeson. I knew we were on a lake, obviously, but I didn't know it was Lake Greeson, and that was kind of a weird, nostalgic thing for me because I had always heard my dad talk a lot about, all the trips they made to Lake Greeson. I didn't even realize that's where we were going, really, so that was kind of cool.
No, pour one out for those stories.
Yeah, definitely. But the campsite was very nice.
Yeah, it was. And all right, so the funny thing to me, and it's not this way, but when I think of Arkansas in the past, there's not a lot of major cities, and it's a bunch
Yeah.
of rural communities and stuff like
hmm
that, and so you tend to just naturally think, oh,
Run
bigger, better in
down in
Texas.
areas.
Well,
Yeah.
not even that. You just think that it's not going to be as nice, but it was quite the opposite. I
Oh,
think
yeah.
because there people take more pride maybe in the
Yeah.
in the small areas, but like it was one of the nicest or maybe the
It
nicest
was the
campsite
nicest
I've ever
campsite.
been to.
Yeah. Which,
And the bathrooms were really nice, which that's a
yes,
huge plus. It was like they
definitely.
don't have Bucky's up there, but their
This was
state parks
Bucky's-esque.
bathrooms are on point.
Yeah. And that's the reason that we chose Daisy is because my aunt and uncle they've spent a couple of summer vacations there.
Yeah, the photos
And
were always good.
yes, yeah, all those Snapchats from my uncle
Yeah.
were always making me jealous. Like, oh my gosh, that they have multi-level decks out there. It's really
Yeah,
cool the way that
that
it's
was one
set
of the
up.
really cool things.
So like the campsites are on the kind of the side of the hill going down to the lake, and so they have these really well built, extravagant kind of decks on each campsite there. And that was what was kind of cool too. We're used to when we look at a campgrounds to go to, we're always scared, especially first time we're going, what site. You don't know what site to pick.
Yeah.
And I will say that one of the huge advantages at Daisy is like all the sites look nice. I mean, every last one of them had some kind of
Yeah, and
advantage.
the pictures that you see online, they actually matched what you were
Mm-hmm.
getting. Sometimes that's not always the case. This
Yeah.
was pleasantly a surprise of it was. So
Yeah.
now, all in all, good trip. Like I said,
Mm-hmm.
we called it a day early, which I think ended up working out for our sanity maybe a little bit, but
Yeah. Gave us kind of, everybody says like I need a vacation after my vacation. So it was nice to get back from our vacation and still have a couple days before we get back into the grind.
yeah, exactly. So, kind of the premise on this show, like we always said, we're gonna talk about the stuff that we're talking
Yeah.
about, and maybe whip in some Christianity in there if it
Well,
fits
viewing
this
it through
one.
a Christian lens, right?
I will say the idea to come up with this topic was pretty easy. We were going camping,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of our friends and stuff that either do it a little bit or haven't gone camping and want to know more about it, this is kind of an easy way to give a little bit of information and background into
Yeah.
how we do our camping trips and stuff like that. But this one was a little bit more of a stretch to try to work some Christianity in. So
Yeah.
we're going to maybe stretch it a little bit, but we'll see if we can come up with something to make it work. I don't know.
Yeah, hang with us. But we're not also going to view it through just camping, just kind of trips in general too is
Yeah,
what we
and
want to
a
talk
little
about.
R and
And
R.
yes, yes. Which in that way, I don't think it's so much of a stretch. But um, so I did some polls on Instagram, and it was really interesting. I was asking like kind of what people's style of vacationing
Yeah.
was, and um, so I gave an option like, did you go, almost always or never? And there were some people that said never, including you. I think you voted never.
Yeah, I would have been on the close to never for sure. I don't remember how I answered. I did do it though.
Yeah. And then the other interesting one was, did you go on like long weekend trips or week plus trips? Was it the same spot or always a different spot? And so it's kind of interesting. There's a really good mix in all of that. But I will say most people did say long weekend trips.
Yeah, no, I don't know how you were, but if we did anything, it was long weekend more than anything.
Yeah, well, for me, ours, you can qualify it as vacationing, but it really wasn't all vacation. Most of my travel was tied to shooting competitions,
Yeah,
hauling our horses around. So, but we did get around to different states. We went to Missouri, Illinois, Mississippi, Louisiana, Arizona.
yeah, you've been a lot of places. Before we go there, though, let's. What was your favorite part about our current trip we just got off?
Oh, put me on the spot. Um, the ATV trails were fun. That's always fun. The boys love that, so I love getting to see them love that.
Yeah, puts them
Um,
to sleep too, so that's good.
yeah, yeah. Somehow the hum of the four wheeler puts them to sleep by the time we're back.
Maybe
But
the fumes. I don't know.
oh gosh, okay. Um, but no, I think actually my favorite part may have been the boat ride, which I think I enjoyed because it was very spontaneous that we all went in. We were there with a group, and so we all went in and rented a boat for a few hours and drove around the lake and explored. And that was just very relaxing. Once Dylan fell asleep on me, it was
Yeah.
relaxing. And just pretty. And like I said, I think I just appreciated the spontaneity because that's not really typically how I roll.
Yeah, you stole mine. I was gonna say the boat because that's a little more out of the norm for some of the trips we go on.
Yeah.
A lot of the trips with your family involve ATVs, so
Yeah.
um,
It's part
that's
of it.
yeah, exactly. So not that it gets old.
Mm-mm.
It's just that that's like a common theme. It's not
Mm-hmm.
something out of the norm that gets done. The I liked the 3-layered deck. I thought it just
Yes.
looked cool. I really enjoyed the kids liked going up and down the steps on them, and it wasn't like too many steps at once. It was like
Mm-hmm.
3 or 4 steps at a time, um, and we kind of just dropped off from the slope from there into the lake, and so the scenery was just really nice. But the boat ride that kind of changed it up, and that made
Yeah.
that whole day kind of
That whole
different.
day
So
was fun. You made gumbo.
yeah,
It was very good.
that took all day. I didn't get to go ride the second time, but
Yeah, but you like
I do.
to cook.
I like to cook, so that was
Yeah.
fun.
Mm-hmm.
So we were there. How long?
Monday through Thursday.
Yeah, we're supposed to be there through Friday. We ended up coming home Thursday, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that was a second longest trip we've done with all three kids.
Yeah. Ended up for us, it was like 8 hours. It's not actually that long of a
Oh, I didn't mean
drive.
drive.
For
I meant like
anybody.
duration.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I guess that
Both,
too.
I guess. It
Mhm.
was the second longest in the car and
Yeah.
duration.
Yeah, we did a much longer drive to Colorado last year,
Yeah, but we drove through the night, so they
Mhm.
slept almost the whole way.
yes.
Pro tip, that'll come up
yes, for sure.
if you can manage that.
Right. Um okay, so where are we headed here?
Where you were jumping off, let's go with backgrounds, I guess.
Okay.
How we got to this.
So yeah, like I said, I don't know if you would call it vacationing per se, but we did travel a lot and did longer weekend trips with my competitions, and I say my whole family did it. So I saw a lot that way,
Yeah.
and I don't know, experienced a lot that way. But that was our main vacation. Other than that, we probably did a handful of things. We went to Frio River and stuff like that every now and then, and every now and then my mom would insist that we go on a non-competition related.
Yeah, so Darcy's background is a lot more traveled than mine. Um, we talked about this before. We took trips for sure. And we even took some, maybe, because a lot of yours were around the shoots and stuff like
Mm-hmm.
that. When we went on vacation, they weren't just true vacations because I didn't do anything like that.
Yeah.
And so we've even done some different stuff from you, like the Disney Worlds and stuff like
Mm-hmm.
that. But we didn't do the breadth or depth of the ones where you've been more places and
Yeah.
stuff like that. Um,
Y'all did more like weekend trips. Like, didn't you say y'all went to like Astro World and stuff
yeah,
like
we would
that?
do that stuff. We went to, sporting events and stuff
Mm.
like that, or we would have little trips out of relatives getting married or stuff like that,
Oh,
or
yeah.
we'd go to the Alamo or San Marcos for a weekend, the Cave Wonders or whatever, Wonder World.
Yeah.
So we would do stuff like that every summer and stuff like that. But I worked a lot. I didn't like going on
Well,
vacation and stuff like that.
that's your dad.
I know, exactly. Yeah, so for me, as soon as I could, fortunately or unfortunately, my dad owned his own business. So when I was out of school, summer, spring break, winter break, whatever, like grade school, I would just go to work with him. That was vacation to me. I'd go to Houston and
Mm-hmm.
go do whatever. I enjoyed it, liked it. Um, Fond memories of me and him doing that. So
Mm-hmm.
it was never like a negative for me. This isn't like a
Mm-hmm.
Cry Me a River thing, but because of that, and I would, he probably paid me like $3 an hour or something, but I would make money while I was there, and I liked it, and it was fun. I felt like doing man's man stuff. So,
yeah.
but because of that, we weren't like gone for extended periods of time. Like I said, we would go to Disney World or something
Mhm.
like that. It's not like we didn't do anything, but that was one of the things when you and I got married and
Mhm.
had the kids. That was like a difference.
Yeah.
Like this is literally the first spring break I think I've done anything in God knows how long. In college, I didn't go anywhere. I was always working in college, and we would, do stuff at night or whatever. I didn't need to go anywhere. I didn't go to Panama Beach or
Mhm.
Galveston, any of those places.
Whereas my family starts getting the itch to go somewhere. Well, honestly, on their way back from wherever they've been.
Typically, our last night there, they're planning the next one.
exactly.
Yeah, yeah. So a little bit of different worlds there for sure.
Yeah. But you're getting on board a little bit, and you've made me more of a homebody that I actually
I
appreciate.
am definitely more of the homebody,
Mhm.
and I enjoy the trips. It is, but it's hard for me, honestly. Like, and I think we were talking about it this time. I was way more relaxed about it. Whether it's
Mhm.
carrying the stress of like, oh, what's going to happen at work while I'm gone, or what's going to go wrong at the house, which did happen while we were gone.
Oh, yeah.
Water line broke, but cow got out.
Yeah.
But so I handled it a lot better of like, whatever happens, happens, and
Yeah.
Monday's gonna stink at work, but whatever.
Well, also, even on the way up there, we were talking about when we prepared for Colorado, which we knew that was going to by far be the longest trip for the boys and
Us.
longest trip for us driving and everything. So um, we got out in front of that trip like by a month. We were kind of packing up stuff and figuring out, getting all our things together for our tricks in the truck, like how we were going to have it set up for the boys to make it comfortable,
Yeah.
and all this stuff went into it. And it did go well, but this one, it was still a long-ish drive.
Well, we were kind of on the fence, I feel like, on like, are we going? Are we not going? Like, there was things that needed to line up and fall in place to where it
Yeah.
wasn't like a for sure nearly as
Yeah, but
far
it
in
just
advance.
it snuck up on us.
Yeah.
And so then it was like, oh shoot, okay, we need to pack for that, and like we're going. So we need to get it all together, and so we were kind of flying a little more on by the seat of our pants on this one, but it worked out.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
so. It was fine.
We're just getting better at it, I guess.
It's becoming more natural.
Yes. Yeah. And we got into camping. I guess we'll talk about our first trip. We weren't sold on it. I always camped a lot, but when we went on our first camping trip, we borrowed your parents' camper,
Yes.
and
Which is ironic because my parents didn't do this, but then they ended up. My mom always talked about wanting to
yeah,
have the camper and go everywhere. And so then they bought a camper
Yeah.
and we didn't even have one, so we borrowed theirs.
yeah. So we
Did we have June? yet?
yes.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we did. No, because I vividly remember that weekend. We drove it out there. We went to just Lake Somerville,
Yeah.
wasn't it?
Yeah.
Wasn't that when we went to Big Creek?
No, Welch.
Oh yeah. Okay, that one was fine. It was Big Creek that so like a second trip not long after
yeah,
that.
long after.
And we did have June. We were there with friends who didn't have kids yet, and or at least young babies yet. And I vividly remember, like middle of the day, you were like, "We're going home.
Oh yeah.
We're not doing that. We're not
I'm
campers."
still like that sometimes now.
Yeah, I've learned to roll with it. But at the time, I was like, okay.
Yeah, I don't think he would take a nap, and I was like, I'm over this.
Yeah, like why are we here, So it was all that to say, it was a little rocky in the beginning. But
Well, you grew up doing it,
mhm.
whether for shoots or not. And even though we didn't camp at all, I always had a fond appreciation for it.
Yeah, you had
Hanging out.
friends that did,
Yeah,
and you would
because
go
there's
out
a
there.
lot of people
Yeah.
in this town that go to that lake pretty often. And it's nice because I think we've mentioned this in the past. It's like from our house to get there,
Less
even
than
if
a half
you're,
hour.
yeah, even if you're like cruising to get out there,
Yeah.
it's 30 minutes. So that's nice. You can zip back if you need something. It's low pressure,
Mhm.
and it's fun. There's always, because it's a small town, you typically know at least someone else out there if you didn't even go as a group.
Yeah. Yeah. But even on that trip that you were like, we're done with this.
Yeah.
You did come around. Like we made it through that, and by the end of it, we were having a good time. We were kind of getting it figured out. You were a little less stressed, and pretty much from there, we were like, okay, if we're gonna do this, let's get our own camper, which is also how
Well,
we roll. We don't like
yeah,
to borrow.
exactly. No, for sure. That's definitely who we are.
And so, true to yourself, how long for like a month?
Oh, probably longer than that.
Yeah,
Just
2 months,
staring.
6 weeks. But you just
Went through
lived,
every brand, every style, every floor
knew all the
plan.
floor plans. We were trying to strategize for, we had June at the time. I guess we didn't
No,
have
we didn't
Clyde
have
yet,
Clyde
but
yet.
anyways, we knew we would, have more kids, and so we were trying to figure out the best floor plan and
Yeah,
wanted.
for the kids, we wanted the bunkhouse.
yeah, and
The bunkhouse, and then I like to cook, so I wanted the outdoor grill stuff.
yeah,
That was big for me.
yeah. Which I think looking back
And a
now,
king size bed.
yeah, and I think looking back now, you would probably ditch the outdoor kitchen because you basically carry an outdoor kitchen with you.
I've kind of modified ours to be that, but ours has the big outdoor kitchen fridge, which I
Yeah, the
could not
fridge
trade.
is a non-negotiable.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the big one on top of it.
Yes. But anyways, you get to the dealership and you're looking at the bunk rooms, and it is a little different being there in person. So do suggest going in person if you're in the camper market.
Yeah, you can't just order these off Amazon. That's for sure. You need to see them. But yeah, no, we were headstrong. We're gonna do this, and I think like everything I ever buy. I know everything about it.
Yeah.
So I went through everything, and then we went a couple towns over, and we were trying to find a specific one, and that was kind of hard. The one we have I was dead set between the one we ended up buying and it was a Wildwood, I think, was the other one. And I think the place in Waller had that one because we did go look there too.
Yeah.
And we were dead set between those two, and then I don't remember at the end. I think I was just tired and we like flipped a coin or something. I don't know, but anyways, and that was a whole adventure buying that. Remember, it took us like 8 hours to actually get out of there with it,
which was somewhat a fluke, but yeah, that was a long process. But anyways, we got the camper. One nice thing about having a camper is, that you get to basically pack it up and a lot of the stuff stays with it, which was one of the huge deciding factors for us.
There's a positive.
Yes. And so got that, packed it all up and everything. But I will say it's still a lot of work. But like going even just to Somerville, it's still a lot of work to load everything up and stuff. I mean, it's kind of crazy.
And unload it, do all the things. Like, this is what we were talking about was people listening. I don't know how many of you guys have camped, or are interested in it. And so we were like, all right, what's the positives and negatives and kind of overview of it, right? And so you just nailed, I think, one of the biggest positives and also negatives built in the same one. So let's break it down, like going somewhere to camp versus hotel or Airbnb. That's the biggest stuff now.
Yeah.
For having kids, I will tell you the fact that there's a lot of storage in those things, and it's the negative too, all the packing and unpacking when you get back. But there are things that we have had in that camper from the day we got it home the first time that have never come out. Like, besides when we use it wherever we go. And we talk with people who have multiple kids and stuff. And remember the first time we went to San Marcos with June, and the entire bed, I have an F-250, the entire bed and backseat of my truck was full.
You couldn't even see out of the back, and it was just one.
Yeah, it was one kid, and we were staying for like 2 nights.
Yeah.
And yeah, okay, it was our
that
first
was
kid.
Also first kid.
Well, yeah, we overpacked, but it was the same thing where it's like, I don't know what he's going to want. I don't know what's going to soothe him, stuff like that. Yeah. And even with them being 5, you still feel like you need options for everything, right?
Right.
So, and people we've talked to is like, oh my God, going on vacation stinks because you just pack so much. And so with this, you're going to still spend a lot of time packing and whatnot, but there's a lot of things you can just leave in there, and that's super clutch.
That's definitely one of the big advantages. And then you mentioned one the other day that I hadn't necessarily thought of, but I thought was good about like your food.
Yes.
Because if you go on vacation, as far as like money savings, because obviously if you get a camper, you're paying a note, You're
right.
And a lot of people will say,
it's like another car.
Yeah. A lot of people will say like, well, I can spend that on a hotel, which you're right.
It's true.
And so, but the only thing for us that I do appreciate is the money we save, because we'll just basically grocery shop, and then that's what we eat when we're out there.
And you can grocery shop at home too. That's what's also nice. Like, we buy stuff before we go anywhere and just stock the fridge and pantry.
Yeah.
And can use stuff from our house.
Yeah, and that makes it more of kind of a relaxing vacation to me, that we can kind of make our own food, eat on our own time. And definitely does save money that way, because we're not having to go out to eat every meal.
Even if we do go out to eat, think about this, because I've played this game with you. You may not finish your food at the restaurant, and it's just your natural instinct to, if there's like 2 bites of food left, you want to take it home. And I'm like, oh my God. But
I have room for it now in the fridge.
With the camper, yes. But when we're in a hotel and you're like, maybe we'll take it home, I'm like, that's either going to make my car stink or our hotel room stink. You're not taking it.
Yeah.
But with the camper, I can't really say that. So
yeah. So, moving right along, what are some of your like go to, or if you were going to tell somebody some camping or RVing tips, what would you say
Um,
that we've figured out in our couple of years?
like tips for clarify it more. You're springing this on me, like before you buy one, or like
No, no, no. Like just some things that we figured out. Like, let's see. I would say like one of my tips would be if you are traveling with kids in the camper, you can keep the toys pretty minimal. Um, but if you're camping, do more of the outdoor toys, like those
oh
little
yeah, the
sand
campers
toys
aren't big
and
enough. You
yeah.
want to be outside.
I
That's the whole
used to
point.
pack them all like, books and
Yeah, and those never do anything.
yeah, different toy cars and things, and you really don't need any of that. Like a few outdoor items and they'll be fine.
Lights, you definitely need lights.
Yeah.
Always have those stocked up, string lights, or even like I bring like spotlights and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Certain campgrounds have good, well lit areas,
Mhm.
but a lot of times you're more remote. There's no, I mean, that's kind of the
Idea.
idea. Yeah, you're out places, so
We haven't tried this one, but talking about lights, we saw a cool setup. You always see somebody who's really got something figured out
yep,
whenever you're camping. The pros. There was the guy that was camped behind us at Daisy had a
like
5 gallon bucket
floodlight.
and a floodlight, and so he put the floodlight in the 5 gallon bucket, so it wasn't like hard to hard to look at, but it lit up the whole area. So we're
Yeah,
gonna have
and
to
that
try
was
that.
cool because I have those spotlights in there, pain in
Yeah,
the butt to like set up in the right
DIY.
area to not blind you
Yeah,
or people around you. So yeah, I definitely took note of that, and I'm gonna try that out.
yeah. And then like we've seen people, if you're going somewhere hot, like we are typically at Lake Somerville, those shades that people attach to the awnings can be nice. One of
Fans.
my Yeah, definitely fans. One of my biggest tips, I would say, is, and this could be for camping or tent camping or anything like that, would be to, like, I still, before almost each trip, I go to, like, a thrift store and get anything that we need for
Oh
that
yeah.
trip. That way because you're doing it for camping, and then you can leave it in there to our point about not having to haul it back and forth from the house
No, we
to the
bought as
camper.
much double stuff as possible, like
Exactly. But you can do
plates,
that from the thrift
utensils,
store, from the dollar store. Um,
extra old stuff that you had in the house that maybe you
yeah,
replaced.
purge
Put
it.
that out there.
Yeah. So those are some of mine. Um, oh, since you're not answering this, like I was hoping, I'll feed you some.
Yeah.
The You did a water filter system this time.
Yes, yes, and you can buy those at the store. So, and that was, we get really annoyed if any of y'all do camp and you bring all of your water with you all the time. That adds up. You have plastic bottles and everything everywhere, and that really gets old really fast. So, and bottled water, like I cook and stuff, if you use it for cooking, it, I don't know, it leaves like a different taste. So, I bought like two extra. Everyone usually puts like a filter on. I
Mm-hmm.
put like basically another filter on top of that, and it was questionable. I was like, all right, day one, do we really want to test this and find out like it makes us sick or something? But I was like, whatever. But
It was fine.
it
Tasted
tasted
fine.
fine, yeah. And
Everybody's fine.
oh, the other thing, I have that countertop ice maker.
Yeah, that was on my list too. So
Yeah,
I'm glad you
which
picked up.
that has between the two. So we have an outdoor fridge that holds drinks or anything that I'm like gonna cook. I can leave outside, so we don't have to keep going in and out. Um, and now that I have that ice maker going, I really think maybe one small cooler. Like I don't even have to bring
Yeah.
near the cooler stuff, which that's I am like a man playing Tetris every time we go camping. Between how I pack everything up and I'm trying to eliminate as many things that go in the bed of my truck as possible because we
Yeah.
have bikes and scooters and
Mm-hmm.
strollers and all this stuff that I always have to unload. And so I'm always like, all right, this time we're bringing one thing less.
Yes.
All right, so I don't know how many of you out there camp or have camped before, or maybe are listening to this like, I have no idea what they're talking about or anything. And so, kind of like you were saying, when you get one of these, it's obviously a huge investment. So it's
Mm-hmm.
not something you can just like on a whim be like, oh yeah, let's do that. That sounds
Yeah.
fun.
For
But
us, with our kids and our family, we just realized we're not going to be in a position to take long vacations for a while.
Yeah.
And so camping was that investment for us.
Yeah, nice little, like, to the point of your poll, like long weekend type things.
Yes.
We could just do it with that. So, and we were committed, knew we wanted to do it, but we still tried it out, even with you having the history with it. So,
Yeah.
I get people whenever I talk to them about the camper that we have, and they're like, "Oh man, like I think I'd like that, but we've never done it." One thing, just so you know, pretty much everywhere I've gone, you can rent them. And there's different sites and stuff that you can pick different types of models, floor plans, stuff like that. But the really cool thing is, if you don't have like a truck or something like that, they'll come set it up, haul it off for you, put everything out. They make sure everything's working. So yeah, so you can like go to whatever state park or thing that's close to your house that seems like something that would be fun, and rent one. Shoot, some of the like one of the places we're going this summer, they rent them at it's like an RV resort.
Oh yeah,
thing.
they just have them set up.
Yeah. So, and that's the same thing. If you can, you can even I think even at Somerville, like you can rent one from someone around here, and they'll go set it up. Or if you have someone close to you that has one, maybe
borrow it,
go visit them when they're out there, and kind of take it all in and see if you like it. But it's definitely, it's probably not for everyone. You kind of got to be into it. But to what we're going to talk about next, for kind of like the Christian aspect, it kind of gets you closer to nature than other vacations. So like, back to what I was saying, we didn't do a lot of stuff like this. It was more event driven.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the thing I like about camping, is it's slower paced.
I know. When we went places, especially when, like I said, it was my mom saying we're going on a non-shooting competition trip, we were always, you're exploring that area, and so it can kind of be a lot. Like you have a whole itinerary almost, but
exactly,
camping,
I was going to say itinerary.
Yeah, camping, you don't have an itinerary. You're just there to kind of explore whatever site that you're at, and even the town. Maybe you're going to go in and try some places or go to shops or whatever. But you're right. It is more
the only
laid back
itinerary
style.
is your menu.
Yeah, exactly.
That's it for us. That's because of me.
Yeah. But yeah, I would say definitely ask people or borrow one and go try it out.
Even if you don't think you're into it or it's for you, I highly suggest doing it, because it is fun.
Yeah.
And especially if you have a young family, because it's hard. Like, I freak out when we're in a hotel, because the walls are thin and stuff like that. And I'm like, oh my God, when the kids start crying, like, I'm going to bother the people around us. And we've done that with the kids and stuff. And when I'm in the camper, I'm like, whatever, these people are like at least 20 yards away from us, and maybe they're in the same situation. I don't care as much.
Yeah. No, that is a good point too.
So,
how do we view this through a Christian lens? You may be curious as to the stretch we're going to make here, but I don't think it's too
I'm
much of a
interested to see how we make this work here, to be honest.
No, I mean, we've talked a lot about specifically camping, but going back to the point that we just said, is like, this was, even after the first couple of trips that were kind of challenging for us,
a little bit,
we realized very quickly that this was a great way for us to be able to detach from work, but also for us detach from even just our property, which we love, but it is a lot of work. Like our house and our place is a lot of work, and this was a nice way for us to be able to detach from that. And I read something, or this was probably a reel or something I watched a long time ago, but it stuck with me, and it was like, some things that you get into with your kids are harder because you have your kids with them, but it's worth it. Like the memories that you make, the memories that they make, are worth it. And, talking about memories, like we've talked a lot lately about, all it really takes for a kid to remember something is just breaking out of their day-to-day routine.
True.
And not to say that the day-to-day routine isn't, also what they'll very much kind of revert to and remember and learn from.
Think about your own life. The earliest things you can remember are
something special. Like in some way, it doesn't have to be super special or over the top, but just something that breaks up that routine. And our boys, especially our oldest, has like the craziest memory you've ever seen, but it does amaze me what he remembers about camping.
Already, yeah.
And so that just, for us, this was a good way for us to be able to kind of make sure that we are regularly detaching from the hustle and bustle and resting and kind of coming back refreshed. Because I also will say, when we do come back from vacation, I'm ready to be home. And like, that's something for me because I work from home.
Yeah.
I kind of need
Well,
that time
and
away.
it's well documented. As we mentioned, we have a
Yeah.
lot of stuff going on around the house all the time. And it is funny, even if it's 2, 3 days and we're just at the lake 30 minutes down the road, all of a sudden you have like a different perspective when you come back.
Yes.
So that has always been a huge plus. And then to your point, even this last time, we're not pros at this at all. One of us is typically having to lay down with the kids for at least like an hour to get them to sleep in this thing that we've had for like 3 or 4 years now. And we still don't have that down to a science. We're always like, you know what? Someday they're just going to go in here and go to sleep.
Yeah.
But they don't right now. But instead, it's frustrating when you're in the middle of it. I still have times where I'm like, let's just go home. But
I will also say the first night is always the worst.
yeah,
Because they're not
sometimes, I
settled
don't know,
into
that-
it.
Yeah.
By the end, they typically are doing a little better.
A little bit, not a whole lot. Let's be honest. The last night we were there, I was having to lay in the floor with them. But the point I was going to make is, like those reels or whatever you'll see, or was it Trace Adkins? You're going to miss this or whatever. Some of them you're like, really? But so this last trip, I'm laying there on the floor for like an hour. And I was thinking, like, you know what? It's going to be a positive, but then also kind of sad when I don't have to do this anymore, or they don't want you to come in here anymore. So,
Yeah.
Even through the struggles and that's any trip. Doesn't matter
Yeah.
if you're camping in a hotel. Like I said, we've done it all. We've flown with them,
Yes.
done everything except a boat. I will not do that.
You'll feel too trapped, I guess.
No, exactly. Yeah, we got to be able to get out. Plane was a stretch, but it's a short time.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's a struggle, but the struggle's worth it, I feel like.
Yeah. No.
Because
I
they
think
remember
is.
it, to your point.
I think
it's
it is.
memories for them.
Yeah.
So for us with the camping, the way, and I kind of alluded to this earlier, I like it for R&R. Here's where we'll start making our Christian stretch here. We're going to, like, I'll take this Arkansas trip. It's a different state I'd never been to, so there's different landscapes, stuff like that. When you're camping or glamping, you're kind of more remote areas. Don't have to. They've got resorts and stuff, but the ones we like are more remote. And it really does kind of give you a different viewpoint of the world and God's creation.
Yes.
Gives you a different sense of appreciation, different wildlife, different trees, nature. We've done mountains, beaches, stuff like that. And it kind of just reminds you get stuck in your own rut of, no matter what you do, you're in a small circle that you're constantly repeating. And so when you do something like this, it's just like a stark reminder of like, oh, wow, yeah, there's a lot more out here. And
Yes.
this is just, we drove one state over. Like, there's out of the 50 states, there's like 40 that I still need to go see and stuff like that. And I
Yeah.
have goals to do that because there's so much different stuff out there. And if you
It's
look
good
at it through that
perspective.
lens of like, wow, like we go to Colorado, here's the mountains, like, man,
Yeah.
that's just, those are easy ones. But even just the drive through Arkansas, through the small towns and stuff like that, it's just kind of cool.
Yeah. And even I've kind of come to appreciate even the road trip. Like, am I even glad, or am I always glad when we've made it there successfully? Yes. But I have come to really appreciate the road trip part of it too. Because that's like the beginning of your vacation. And
Yeah.
even at the end, then you're already looking back saying, because I'm always asking you this, because this comes
It's
from
like
my
your
mom.
number one question.
Yeah, this comes from my mom and
We're
my
5 minutes
grandma.
down the road.
What was your favorite part?
Yeah. We're like shutting the doors, pulling out of the park. What was your favorite part? I don't know, dear. I'm just trying to get home.
You like that I ask that stuff.
It's you. It's legit. So
But yeah, I've appreciated that part too. But yeah, to your point about like perspective and the pace, um, it's funny because in thinking about this, in reference to our podcast and thinking about like what would God say about vacations and what does God say about work and what does God say about rest? And it's not one of those where the scripture
yeah,
just
there's nothing
jumps.
just out in bold for
Yeah,
sure.
exactly. The scripture doesn't just jump to the front of my mind, but a few thoughts that I had are like, um, God, mm, He made us more for actually like a walk with Him and
Yeah, a
literally in the garden, and then that got messed up, right?
little
And
bit.
He kind of sentenced us to working
Yeah.
a little bit. And so I know that God appreciates work for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But rest is talked about all throughout the Bible and in all different kinds of ways.
Some good, some bad.
Yes. And like God even built himself in a rest day.
Yeah, and that was so we were when we were first looking at it, the thing that kept coming to my mind, and don't get it twisted here. I'm not saying when God rested on the seventh day, that was for us to take vacation. No,
No,
that's for a different purpose. But if you want to take it a little deeper and think about it, like God didn't have to rest for anything.
God doesn't need rest.
Exactly. He
Yeah.
chose to rest on
Yeah.
that day. Now, that was also for us to use as a day for Him,
Mm-hmm.
of course. But the fact that God rested, I've thought about that as like, we should do that too, because I do think it
Yeah,
breaks the
when you
monotony.
said it earlier, you were like, God doesn't need rest. I was like, yeah, you're right. Even God took a day to like sit back and look at what he had done and
Yeah.
his own creation and stuff.
Yeah, and it's one of those weird things where it's obviously there for us to have the Sabbath and the Lord's Day and
Right.
stuff like that, but it still says in the Bible, and He rested on that day.
Mm-hmm.
And so, a little bit of a stretch here. You have the Sabbath, but I also do think it's important to rest. And so, to tie back into what I was saying in the beginning, vacations were hard for me, and this is kind of, I get this from my dad for sure. I am always looking for, it's like economics opportunity cost. Like if I'm not doing this,
Mm-hmm.
I could be doing this.
Mm-hmm.
And even though like I'm the guy who I'll use my vacation days, don't get me wrong, but I'll use them to go work, do a side job or
Yeah.
get something done around the house, just something to keep things moving forward. I never had an appreciation for just like stop. And that was, what I'm getting at here is now I'm like, okay, I always went to church, did all the things, but everything just kept moving at a faster pace. And while it's a challenge for me, these vacations force me to kind of stop and smell the roses, so to speak, and kind of look at
Yeah.
God's creation around you and kind of get more in tune there. And I, you know,
Yeah. I think moms kind of experience a lot of that too because whenever we're always busy with the kids and then when we're not busy with the kids like say one or all of them are
a
miraculously
miracle.
napping, everybody says like sleep when the baby sleeps. That doesn't happen. We go right to
Yeah.
laundry or dishes or whatever. And so literally detaching from the house a little bit
Yeah.
is I think very healthy.
Well, and it's like, so just this trip right here, and I've noticed the feeling that comes up when we do these. As stressful as it seems to leave work or leave the house or leave the yard work, all those things that were monotonous and maybe hard, like I'm re-energized to like
Yes.
go back to work Monday, and I'm like, all right, I'm gonna hit it hard and
Yeah.
and get back on a routine. And we got home this weekend, and it was like, all right, let's start
Yeah, we
doing
worked on
all
our
these
place.
things. Yeah,
Mhm.
and with no like anger about doing anything, right?
Yeah.
Like everything was like, oh man, we haven't been home for a week. Hey, I love our house,
Yes,
stuff like that.
exactly. It
So
gives you such good perspective and refreshment
yeah,
coming back. Yeah.
and
I think we do need that.
yes, and I think that's you kind of recenter yourself, take yourself out of the rat race for a second
Yes.
on any vacation. Doesn't have to be camping. Anything you do, it can be just going, even if you live in the city and you decide, I'm just going to get a hotel room for this night. I don't
Yeah.
care. We're going to go see this one thing
Mm-hmm.
and then we're going to come back. It's amazing. We do these short little long, everyone said they do the long weekend trips. And when we do those, even if you're gone for 2-3 days, it's like you come back and it's like,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. And talking about like going back to like, does the Bible talk about that kind of thing, or what can we pull from the Bible to help us with this? And one of the interesting thoughts that you had was how like Jesus and all the people were nomadic people
Yeah.
back then. They were constantly kind of on the move and traveling and, making, oh gosh, what's that word? Pilgrimages.
Yep.
Pilgrimages.
Or
That's
a
it.
pilgrimage.
Well, yeah, a pilgrimage.
I don't know if it goes plural or not.
Yeah,
So.
that doesn't feel right, plural. But anyway, so they traveled a lot. That was kind of already built into their life, or even just the whole of their lifestyle. And it's just not really, I think, especially, or from what I hear, Americans are really terrible about that. I think even like in Europe, it's kind of a little more built in still going on holiday.
Yeah. Well, that I have something there. So, and I don't even know if this is true. I'm just going to go with it. But we all say vacation, which is like to vacate, right? Vacate where you were,
Yeah.
go somewhere else. And holiday, I believe, comes from like holy day.
Mm,
That's where holiday came from. And so it was like, and Europeans still say holiday, and we
Yeah.
have holidays, but
right.
for the most part, we say vacation. And
Mhm.
I was reading this one thing where it was like, let's ditch the term vacation to vacate, and let's, really start using we're going on holiday again, and kind of use the holiday
Yeah.
as both R&R and also kind of recenter yourself with
Mhm.
the Lord and just
Yeah.
your life around.
Hey, that's not a Catholic fun fact, but it'll be a fun fact nonetheless.
If I may have made it up, but if I did, it works.
Yeah,
So
it does work.
we're just going to say that that's correct.
Yeah, we don't need to cite our resources here.
No. And I was also thinking about it. It's like because I've gone on the vacations or holidays where it's like maybe it's easier now with a family of like more centric minded vacations.
Mhm.
And it's like to what our point is, are you going to get out and kind of recenter yourself, or are you
Burn some energy.
are you going out just to avoid work? Because like you were saying in the
Yeah.
beginning, like God, after Eden, we are kind of here to work, do his work.
Yeah.
And he also gave us these talents to do work.
Mhm.
And there are two different types, I think, and not to say that you can't do both at a certain
Right.
time, but, a true holiday in the sense we're talking about is kind of to rejuvenate, bring yourself
Yes.
back for all those things we're saying of like, man, now I'm ready to hit it hard at the house, hit it hard
Mhm.
at work. I feel more centered when we went to church this Sunday, just being out for a week.
Yeah.
And so just kind of like gauge yourself on what type of vacations or holidays are you taking?
Yeah. And
Because you got to balance them.
yes, definitely. And I know some people get more enjoyment out of the vacations that do have the full itineraries so they can see and do all this stuff that maybe they're in more of a mundane routine back home that they want to just completely break. So I'm sure, it's probably very different for different people, but I think that is a good inventory to take of what are we doing with our vacations and holidays. And something that I've heard recently was like expectations. Don't set a high expectation for your vacation.
Yeah.
Because I think it was Father Mike that was saying, expectations steal your joy.
Yeah.
But the lower, this sounds kind of negative, but it's not how I'm meaning it. The lower you can like set your threshold, kind of the more you'll just be there to hang out and
Well, that's like
receive what,
words you need because I think that's what makes it
No,
hard
man.
for you to pivot.
Yeah, I don't pivot well. But yeah, so I think that's a good thought to have too.
Yeah, and kind of to sum it up,
We get caught up in the rat race, and I while that was something that God did, I don't know if ordained for us is the correct term, but that the path he sent us on after the fall of man in the beginning is that we are here to work and stuff. But to your point, not just work in the sense of work, but also work for him and all these things.
mhm.
But we are in such a rat race society right now that whatever your style of rest and rejuvenation is.
Even a staycation, but you do need
Mm-hmm.
it
Yes,
because
you do need it.
I'm trying to think of it's Moby Dick, isn't it? Where do you know what I'm talking about?
Nope.
Let's see. When the whalers and the harpooner was rowing the boats too, and so by the time they would get to the whale, they were too tired to.
Oh,
So then they
yeah.
realized that the harpooner didn't need to row
Mm-hmm.
out, and so that was like, isn't that like the big theme of like how rest is needed? Maybe I'm making a huge stretch. It's kind of late right now, and I haven't read that book in a long time. But I want to say we're going to go with that. So
Yeah.
the point of that being, you'll get burnt out
Yes.
if you don't take the rest. It can be a staycation, glamping, camping
Mm-hmm.
in a tent, whatever you want, but we need that.
Yeah. And I think, especially as parents in the stage of life that we're in, and I'm sure we'll say this about other stages too, but for us, we can really only speak to this stage right now. And it is good for us to break our kids out of the routine that they're in, because it's easier that way to be intentional and connect with them.
I'm
And
going to have to go Cliff Notes Moby Dick because I'm not sure if I just made that up or not.
just
I
move
think
on.
that's in there. It's going to stick with me now. This is in here for eternity.
Yeah.
All right, so that's going to kind of end our discussion there. That was fun.
Mm-hmm.
Hope you got something out of that as we stretched that in there. If you've ever thought about camping, I think
Give it a
hopefully-
try.
Yeah, give it a try. Rent one. Talk to someone who has one. Maybe go visit people that have one.
Go stay in a lodge, something.
And if you're like me and you're not used to taking vacations, do it.
Mm-hmm.
As someone who was not anti-vacation, just definitely didn't have the appreciation. Now
Mhm.
that we've been doing this for a few years, I look forward to it. It's fun. We start planning out. That's the other fun thing with the camper is we're
Mhm.
able to plan out because you book them so far in advance.
Yeah.
You plan out your vacations for like the whole year or at least half a year
Yeah,
at a
that has
time.
been very useful.
Yeah, and that's pretty fun for calendars, especially with all the scheduling conflicts with just having kids and work and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
definitely something to look into. And while you're out there on whatever vacation, staycation, holiday that you're doing, we're going to champion that term.
Yeah.
Kind of center yourself, center your mind, center your body, center on nature with
Yeah,
what
rest
God created.
physically, mentally.
Yeah, and kind of bring yourself back. So next week, this will be a fun one. We've kind of done just some stuff that's been happening in our
Topics,
lives, but
yeah,
we're
going on in our
we're
lives.
closing out, getting near the end of Lent. It has flown by for me. I think it's because it started earlier, and now we've sprung forward, and life's just in fast forward again.
Yes.
But so one of the things that happens for Catholics, which we are, is there will be a penance service coming up, and people out here who aren't Catholic are wondering what I'm talking about. So that's kind of the point. We're going to talk about penance and the sacrament of reconciliation and what that means for Catholics and stuff like that.
Yeah.
If you are Catholic, I promise you this will be interesting because I myself have recently, who's been Catholic from birth, have learned things about it. That's kind of been like aha moments for me.
Yeah.
And if you're not, I also highly advise listening to it because I think it's just cool getting the information.
Yeah, I know we have, listeners from all types of backgrounds. So this next episode is meant to be, informational and enlightening and encouraging, not necessarily for, conversion or getting you over to our side or anything. But when we started this podcast, one of the ideas behind it is that, people don't know what they don't know. You're raised one way, and chances are your understanding of a different way isn't maybe well-rounded, which can lead to a more shallow walk of your own faith or trouble with a potential friendship or relationship or just eventually shying away from your
Well, and
own faith in general.
we've got the ultimate setup here that I think is going to be interesting because we're not going to prep this really hard. We're going to kind of make questions for each other because I was Catholic from birth, so there's a lot of things I know or have found out. Darcy, however, wasn't obviously and has converted, and I think this is probably from even Catholics I've talked to. This is like the hardest of, and we'll briefly touch on sacraments in the Catholic Church, but out of the seven sacraments, this is like the hardest one to kind of grasp, I think. Even for Catholics, even myself, it's when you were
Yeah.
in the process of converting, it was the hardest one for me to talk about because it's kind of like just, well, this is just what we do.
Yeah.
So it
And
forced me to have to learn some stuff, and it's just interesting. Even if you
yes.
don't practice it, it's interesting to know.
Yes, and our whole hope is to shed some light on things that are often misconceived both within the Catholic Church
Yeah,
and outside of it,
by both Catholics and non-Catholics.
Exactly. And that's, what we hope to do with any, topic that comes up. But, I think asking questions or having the conversations, both easy and hard, are what deepens our understanding and, conviction. So they're just meant to be discussions, and we hope, Catholic or otherwise, that you'll tune in and learn something, or like I said, if it deepens your own conviction to practice a different way, that's fine too. It's all about just kind of diving deeper into your own faith, and
Yeah, look,
we'll
if
keep it
nothing
light.
else, this is going to be the perfect outlet. If you've had any question about any of
Yeah.
these things, we might give you an answer that you then don't have to ask somebody out loud, and you may
Or
just have an
Google.
answer then. Yeah, exactly. Save you one of those Google searches. So,
Yeah.
anyways, we'll wrap it up here. Hope you enjoyed this camping episode.
Yeah.
Reach out to your friends. Make sure you take those holidays. We're championing that.
Yeah.
But yeah, next week we'll do reconciliation. So now that we have unpacked the world on camping, you go discuss.